Bring AI to everybody's life. Hey, everybody, this is Charlie from COCO AI. This is our sixth episode of COCO Talk. Today, we had a great honor to have our good friend, serial entrepreneur investor Brian from the United States to join our show. Hey, Brian, how are you doing?
Hey, Charlie. Doing good. Good. Always good to see you.
Great to
Yeah.
have you on the show. Yeah, it's been a long while. Today, we obviously talk about AI, but AI, very interesting, also fairly important topic, AI in privacy. So before we deep dive on this topic, we'd love to like our audience to learn about more about you. So share us your background, your personal story, please.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Started when I was very young. I was 17 and running, I'm in my early 40s now. I was 17 and running an early eBay business, selling car parts. And that's how I got into entrepreneurship. And I basically scaled that business as high as it could go with the eBay traffic. And I said, what other kind of traffic can I find out there? So I got into search engine optimization and then running ads eventually. And then I got into the whole ad world for a long time. Eventually, turned it into a marketing agency and scaled that pretty well, running ads, and kind of also did a lot of PR and working with celebrities and big brands on messaging and marketing and strategy and all that kind of stuff. Got absolutely sick of it, to be honest, and exited the agency. This is around 2013, 2014, and literally the first meeting I had. It's funny, it all plays into AI eventually, but the first meeting I had was actually one of the first investors in something called Ethereum, which is crypto, as you know. Early invested into that right after their ICO, was in that world for many, many years. Angel invested into a lot of things, built a lot in the crypto and blockchain space, and eventually discovered AI in about 2018. I had my first AI startup that I was part of in 2018. Unfortunately, that one didn't work out, but it's kind of stayed in the blockchain world, learned about cryptography, learned about privacy, and then found my way back into AI as of lately. As well. And yeah, aside from that, I have a small sort of investment company, family office, and invest into crypto and blockchain and AI and any kind of frontier technology or that kind of thing. So that's kind of in a quick nutshell my story.
Yeah. I always feel like Brian is like my brother with different parents, in from the West, because we have so similar background.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were early in Ethereum as well. So I think we joined Ethereum community pretty similar time period. Obviously different region probably. I joined Ethereum when I was in Berlin, and you maybe was in the United States, right, different city. Yeah, when I get to know you, right, I think remember it was 2022. It was pretty interesting time and a
yeah,
complicated time. The world changed,
yeah,
especially after Q4, right? The whole FTX events and things like that happened. And I also changed a lot of people's worldview, specifically about governance, right? About privacy, about, the DeFi and CeFi world and so on. Yeah, now we both are in AI space. And, I'm
yeah,
doing
yeah,
enterprise AI for agents. You're doing interesting features on AI, on privacy. So I would love to let's deep dive on that, right? As a serial
yeah.
entrepreneur, as a great marketeer, I want to kind of ask you, kind of tap into your mind, how you see, with your deep, long cryptology kind of industrial, background as well, right? How do you see the difference in the context of AI world privacy compared to like the Bitcoin OG, privacy decentralized world? What, how do you see the difference in terms of privacy definition? Like along we are going
Yeah.
to singularity and AGI now, how do you see the difference?
It's tough to, I guess, to frame it to people. It's like there's sort of a couple different camps in the AI world. There's people that don't care, for lack of a better way of explaining it, about privacy because they just want the frontier technology and they just don't care about anything else. They just want to get the absolute highest bang for their buck, and they don't really care about anything else. Unfortunately, there's a bad trade-off with that. It's and there's even I don't know if you saw this recently in the news, but there's even various people in countries and kind of black hat market for tokens, basically, where they make fake accounts, steal the inference, essentially, hack their accounts, whatever they do to get it. And they're reselling it for virtually nothing or zero in some cases. I've been sent links as of late where people will say, hey, here's an API for, Anthropic, or here's an API for something. It's on some shady link or something. And I've tested them and they actually work. And what they're actually doing is selling your privacy, selling all your information. So they're basically tricking you to get to use it with a very low cost. And it's a race to the bottom. And they're getting it through, various types of, let's say, fraudulent means for the most part. And they're reselling it to right back to Anthropic or right back to OpenAI or one of these companies, your private data. And that's just one of the problems. Of course, just there's many other issues there and on the privacy side. But I think what's interesting is that there's different camps right now in sort of the AI space of what people really care about. Me personally, like in my experience, and this is many people. You mentioned the kind of blockchain crypto G kind of mentality, and a lot of individuals especially want their privacy and want their sovereignty, and they want to be able to control where their data is going, who's having access to their stuff. It's crazy. Here's this is a side tangent here, but the craziest thing is people, what we used to say, well, right on like Google, right? You'd search for something on Google and you'd people, oh, that's probably not very private. Who knows what Google's doing it. Now, what people are doing with AI is they're sharing the most craziest things, like the most private things you could ever imagine, right? Like, it's like, imagine like what, even me and you who are very aware of these things, like even me, I sometimes will catch myself like, oh, my da 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 da, and I'm like, oh wait, I just like shared something super private, and it's like immediately obvious. And because of the context you're giving to these AIs, they already know who you are. They keep private profiles behind the scenes, and that's where people get confused. They think, oh, I've deleted my chats, it's all gone now. Yeah, it's gone from your web browser or your app, but it's still in OpenAI or Anthropic or ZAI or whatever system. It's still in their system. They still have a profile on you, and they're still creating this they still have all this data, and it's like they might not be training on it, but like, are their employees looking at it, or what else are they doing with this data, right? And it's the craziest thing. And my personal thesis is like, eventually the problem is, as we know, many of these companies are just terrible at keeping your data secure, right? So that data's out there. OpenAI and many others have openly said that if you get a lawsuit or if you have a divorce or if you, for whatever reason, they need to pull your data, they can and they will. And they'll say, oh, Charlie, okay, he wrote this, this, and this, and this, and boom. Even if you don't, even some people think they're clever and they put like a fake name or something, but it's, it's still very easy to figure out who you are. If they look at the prompts, they can very quickly profile you and be like, oh, that's obviously Brian. So it's very scary, and I think people just aren't aware of the issue of like, you're sharing the craziest amount of it. People treat their AI as a personal therapist, and they will say, oh, I'm feeling like this and feeling like that, and my wife, my husband, my whatever is like, this, and my business partner I think he's stealing from me, or whatever the case might be. We're sharing the craziest things, and it's way more than it was I was already freaked out in the Google era, of like search and being cautious of what I'm searching for, using a VPN or something like that. But now with AI, I'm just absolutely terrified. And that's just the surface level. And as we know, there's even more nefarious things going on behind the scenes. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm curious your take. It's like, do you think about these things as well? It's like,
I love what you just shared. It definitely was bring me a lot of different perspective, right? And obviously, I'm on a more positive camp, so to speak. I use AI like 10 hours a day. Our
yeah,
team use on average 4 agents per person. We now manage over 60 agents now with a small 15 people team, right? So the AI nativeness is very high, but I definitely agree. We essentially I hate to say we are like providing labor, high level intelligence labor work for free for the large frontier model, and we have to pay them to get the intelligence, right? And they just recursively getting better and better from our data. It is something we sign up for because there's a product we pay, right? Whatever hundreds of dollars per month, we get intelligence work, we get coding work, we get all the all this like, reasoning work and so on. But what you just shared, I think I want to revisit maybe later, even with another episode. It sounds very scary, and this is a huge like maybe like Pandora box of people actually make money race to the bottom by stealing the data and the inference, right? So I
Yeah.
remember that a couple of years ago, people there's those startups, right? They make money because they can outsource those like human labeling work
Yeah.
from Philippines, from Bangladesh, from whatever, the third world country, and they actually sell those labeled data to the frontier model. I think that was probably the reason ChatGPT in the beginning, right? The GPT first version getting really good because they get access to a lot of pretty low cost, labeled data from all the humans all over the world. And now, many years down the road, the model getting so good now, they definitely have much better way to do that. But I agree with you, and I'm gonna follow up with the second question, because we mentioned all these frontier model, like Anthropic, OpenAI, which we use pretty much every day. It's all centralized, and we all agree, and we know that in their terms and condition, as you said, like all the
Yeah.
data we feed to the model, it's somehow essentially owned by them. If something happened that the data get hacked by whatever North Korean or some kind of sophisticated hacker, the data leads to somewhere and eventually have some kind of legal impact or whatnot. They don't necessarily have the legal
Oh,
responsibility.
and imagine this, right? Like imagine Anthropic and OpenAI had a data breach, right? Think of the political think of like how big of a scale of a problem that is, right? We're talking about like world wars potentially because you probably have politicians using their AI accounts. Like I don't
Yes.
think there's even any rules against it, right? They're probably saying like, "Oh, what about this? What about this?" This person did this person did that, and they're sharing the craziest amount of things. And it's like big companies, politicians, like we're talking about more than just like small issues of like, oh, they can subpoena your records in a lawsuit. We're talking about like, major geopolitical repercussions, I think, if that data got out there. So it's pretty scary.
That's exactly the kind of the reason I want to ask you a second question, because now we all know there's different camps of the AI model, right? Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini is definitely on the kind of big corporate centralized model AI, which is a black box. You don't know how the data model works, how the inference works, how the eval works, how all the harness and whatnot, right? And then you have all these like open source model, especially DeepSeek, right? They open up the whole can of worm, right? All these like very lower cost deep model. Now with OpenClaw, all these like agentic framework coming out, it getting a lot of developers from different countries in the world actually access to a lot of AI model. And now obviously the decentralized AI hasn't really proven they are the best quality in the world, competing with the like top three model, but it's just essentially economically better, right? But
Yeah.
how do you think yourself like now wearing your privacy kind of guardrail hat, right? Do you think you are in the decentralized AI kind of camp, or like how give us kind of pros and cons and
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, I think of it in three categories. I think of, your frontier models, closed source, big cloud kind of category, your OpenAI, Codex, whenever,
yeah,
Opus, Fable 5, right? And then I think of open source, which, what comes to mind is like ZAI, GLM 5.2, for example, is currently
yeah,
like one of the top models, and there's others. And then there's decentralized as well, where it's like I have on my desk here an NVIDIA DGX Spark, right? And
yes,
that's like a local. That's like so there's four categories, and what I can do on the local GPU essentially is I can either run a local model or I can resell that inference essentially to a decentralized, let's call it a decentralized exchange. There's a bunch of these where you can like resell your inference. I don't really use the decentralized as much because I have the same fundamental trust issues as I do with the cloud.
right,
Local is good. The problem with local, what people don't realize is this, and I'll point this out to people. And it depends what software you're using to run the local models. Is that there's tool calls, right? So you might need like a web search for something, right? So if privacy, for instance, is your goal, and you're running a local model because you think it's private,
right,
you got to be aware of what harness you're using and what software you're using to run the model. Because if you're saying like who's the best basketball player in the world, and it has to go and search for that, it's defeating the purpose.
right,
Personally, like I'm also on AI, like, all of my day basically doing something, whether it's like building decks or websites or coding or auditing something. I'm doing something constantly, running goal loops basically all the time.
mm,
I've now noticed that the open source models, like for instance, a ZAI, GLM 5.2,
Yeah.
is beating, other than Fable 5, it's beating all the Anthropic models. And I guess
Yeah.
because they recently the Fable 5 got kicked off, that's obvious. But it's very close to Codex 5.5 at the moment, in terms of quality. In fact, maybe even beating it in some cases for the cost difference,
On the
even though
cost
they're
side,
both have.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very close. It's like the value of using Codex. Yeah, they have a few more. Even like the tools that are available in their software is very comparable. So we're seeing that difference between the big cloud models versus the open source quality is like it's right there. So personally, I'm way more interested in the open source models, because I think you have more control. I can run
Mm.
them on a powerful set of GPUs,
Yeah.
or other ways. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's getting 6 months ago. Everyone was when Anthropic when Opus first came out. That's 6 months now, maybe a little bit more than that. It was kind of, oh, it's going to be years before the open source models are as good, and now it's like right there, right there. And you could almost if you didn't tell somebody in AI like what they were using, like it's almost like a wine test, right? You're like, oh, which wine is better? And it's like it's in the eye of the beholder kind of thing. It's like, oh, I like that one better. Oh, that one's better, and you actually got it wrong, or it was like the high priced one was you thought it was bad, and the low priced one you thought was good. And it's kind of like that with AI now. If you didn't actually know what you were using, you might you might not even be able to tell what the difference is. So it's very close. Uh, Personally, like I think they all have their use cases. I think it depends on the person, the company, the business. Obviously, government enterprise are going to be in a different category than individuals that are just like if you're a 20-year-old that's like just building a startup, you kind of don't care. You're just like, give me the best bang for my buck that's going to like do what I need to do so I can build this company, so I can build this product and find investors or sell, get revenue, that kind of thing. But if you have secrets to protect in your, Coca-Cola, you're not going to go to Codex and be like, here's my Coca-Cola secret recipe. Can you improve it? That would be stupid. So it kind of just depends on who you are. Same with government. Like any smart government is probably thinking, oh, we need to make sure that, and you can see this playing out in geopolitics right now. I'm not a politics guy, but you can see it playing out where different countries are kind of posturing around different AI companies and saying, oh, we got to be aware of what we're using and who could be, looking at these things that we're feeding to these AIs. And because that could be very bad too. Imagine a nefarious government or actor was able to get their hands on another government's AI prompts, right? Same issue. It's like you're
Mm.
talking about war now. So it's all really fascinating.
There's a lot to unpack. I'll try to unpack one by one. And there's a few things I want to deep dive. This is very interesting insights you just shared. First of all, I think yeah, you mentioned about blind tests, right? I really feel that way. Like we are very model agnostic. The quality of each model update is getting so insane. It's very difficult to predict 3 months later which one is the best quality model, especially if we put in the cost into perspective, right? Every single dollar you pay, the amount of quality of model you get, like a lot of the open source model is definitely getting really good. And then if we talk about trying to really just get the best of the best model, we don't actually know which company is providing that model. It's getting to a blurry area, right? So I think model agnostic, multi-model is actually the right way to go. It's like the multi-chain in the Web3 world, right? If you like that way,
Yeah, yeah,
in a funny
exactly.
way. And a lot of our clients actually specifically ask a certain model, and after a while, we switch the model, but kind of try to test how they react. They getting less and less clear how they are using the model. They feel like we were doing that as A/B testing, and now we make it very transparent. This is the model literally you're using right now, and that's the result you're getting. And it's surprisingly sometimes it's very good, right? And they're able to switch as an option. But I think the second part you mentioned is very interesting. Different users of AI users have different category of requests, right? Like it's
Yes.
very different, as I mentioned. The average Joe developer who wants just use AI for fun, for something as experiments, has fundamentally very different parameter of requests compared to a sensitive big corporate, multinational company, Fortune 500, or government, right? And then I want to deep dive on this part. You're working on the AI on privacy, right? What would be the best practice for a sensitive another Coca-Cola like secret recipe, or even government who has some kind of a sensitive mission going on, they need digital intelligence and like AI as well, right? What would be the best practice in the architectural level to make sure they're using the access to really frontier model, get really best result of the best, without paying like breaking the bank, right? But while they actually can keep some of secrets without getting the secret data feeding to the big corporates and eventually do something against them, right? What would be the best
Yeah.
practice on?
I think best practice in terms of keeping those secrets private. Um, there's two approaches. You can kind of go with your local inference, where you can set up your GPU cluster in your basement, kind of thing, of your office sort of situation. You can buy a bunch of GPUs. You can set them all up. It's a pain to manage. And then, as I mentioned before, the other problem there is it's not just the inference itself that you have to keep private. It's how does it connect to other things, right? And is that private? Are the web searches or the tool calls, is that private, right? So that's a whole other ballgame. So it's people kind of sometimes get confused there, because they say, oh, but we're running our own local GPUs. How could anybody see anything? It's like, well, it's not the inference level itself, but what is that connecting to? So that can be kind of a trap there. Aside from that, obviously we're doing it with Lugano. We're building a privacy solution that, you can go with someone like us, right? There's a couple others out there. There's Venice.ai. They're more of a consumer grade privacy solution. I think they're great. I use it myself. I think it's great for consumers. You could also build your own, where you could basically, get a bunch of GPUs, build a privacy solution. What you would want to think about are, as I mentioned, like the tool calls and how it interacts with other things. That's the most important part. If you're running it all in a closed environment, you know that it's, private. What we're doing with Lugano is more like the proof side of the privacy, where we can prove that it's private, which I think is very important. So you'd want to be thinking about, you know, basically what you're doing. Think about it like this. Here's the simplest way to think about it. What you're doing with Anthropic or OpenAI is you're trusting them, right? It's a trust. And a lot of people and a lot of companies that have important secrets don't really want to just trust somebody, right? Just, oh yeah, you're going to keep it private, right? I checked this little box here, or I signed this agreement. It's going to be private, right? Right? Maybe, I don't know. So I think that's versus you control it yourself, or you're working with a product that you can prove to some level, cryptographically, verifiably, mathematically, in some fashion, right, that it's private. So that's what I would be thinking about. I'd be thinking about, okay, yeah, instead of just trusting some random company, or even, even these big companies, it's nothing different, right? If you think about the sale of data, right? Think about Facebook. What is the business of Facebook at the very fundamental level? What are they essentially doing? They're selling data, right?
Monetizing consumers' data, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's all the same thing. It's just wearing a different hat. It's just, how do we get these consumers to put in a bunch of stuff so we can, monetize it, sell it, learn off of it, whatever. Social media was the same way. It was like we were just talking about this a couple of years ago, where it's like, you're using Instagram or something, and I love Instagram, but it's like, we all know that they're using your data so much, to the degree that, if let's say you have a baby, right, and you're using Instagram, you're not, even if you don't write on your timeline that you're having a baby, next thing you know, guess what happens? You get baby posts. They're using all that data. Then you get ads. Then it's like it's all the same thing. It's just all these companies, exactly what they're thinking about is just the business is, how do we get people to put in data? How do we monetize it? That's the business. So these frontier, and by definition, really, I personally think it's like the frontier models have to basically have that data to keep building. And the AI models themselves are building new AI models. So how are they doing that? They need data, right? They don't just poof it out of nowhere. It's got to be based on something. They're benchmarking it. They're improving it with some kind of data behind it, right? So fundamentally, they need data to do this. So that if you're using a frontier AI and a closed cloud, that data essentially is what they're monetizing.
Very well said, Brian. I think for the people who are listening, obviously we have a lot of like token maxing kind of users in our community who use AI or the close like frontier model every day. That's definitely something as a privacy to keep in mind, right? That's a trade-off. When we are access to the highest quality AI digital intelligence, getting a lot of work done, right? Make your life easier, powerful, all to speak. there's a trade-off in you actually giving your important data to some company. You somehow needs to trust them, right? There's a thing called a trust assumption, meaning this company actually are capable legally, technically to be evil. And even ironically, the biggest company, Google, their slogan was "Don't be evil," but they actually can be evil if they want to. So by signing that terms and condition, setting up the account over there and giving up your data, they're able to do that. So it is a bit dystopia sometimes when you're a bit getting cynical, right? Literally are giving a lot of our privacy to the big companies, and what do you get? What gets you? You get some convenient benefits, you get some work done, but the
Absolutely.
trade-off is you have to give away that, right? So on the flip side, as I mentioned, Brian, what you're doing, and then some other people like Eric, right, Eric Voss, and so on, they're doing a bit different model. And I think that was kind of the thing we, from the people in the Web3 background as well, right? We try to provide an alternative solution, which is very different, somehow disruptive compared to a lot of the centralized architectural model in the whole world, right? Compared to the Mega 7, the trust assumption is the code, is ZK knowledge proof, the TE, a lot of like infrastructure, which by design, the founder of the company cannot actually be evil, right? They just systematically cannot be evil. If they, even they want to, you don't want to trust the founder, but you kind of see the principle. It's like nobody in that system who built this system can be evil and steal the data without any any responsibility and so on, right? I think that's kind of thing. Eventually, I feel when all the large model, even Anthropic, OpenAI go IPO, and they kind of like win whatever Wall Street capitalism game, people are gonna realize we might have another solution, right? We Especially if some crazy weird shit will happen, as you mentioned, maybe somebody's data gets stolen by some malicious hacker, and or maybe by some I hate to be the devil's advocate, but who knows? Maybe some executive who somehow start behaving something evil in those big companies, and some crazy stuff happen, right? Just like Facebook a couple of years ago, right? They get all the hearing in the SEC because like all the Columbia analytics, right? All this data get stolen, and they realize, holy shit, everybody who uses Facebook every day, you're gonna monetized by these big corporates, eventually benefit their shareholders, and you as a user get nothing back, and you have to still keep paying them. So I think, yeah, this is very, very well said. I think we definitely want to see the new frontier of new paradigm. It's not just better, faster, cheaper. There's something called, you have something to give away as a privacy, right? As a trade-off. So that's kind of in technology, everything has a trade-off, right? So I'm curious. I think the second question I'm curious, third question I'm curious. I want to ask you, being an entrepreneur, right? Being kind of the investor in the AI space, how do you see the next 2 years will look like? While everybody talk about singularities, right? Like agentic framework, all the
Yeah.
AI workforce is like disrupting a lot of the labor markets. You know, Obviously you're doing things with privacy, like it's a new, unique perspective, right? From the privacy like builder perspective, how you gonna see the next 2 years of AI workforce on the entire global labor workforce?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. I think, my perspective is, I think in zooming out a hair there, I think the way I look at it is, the users of AI now, there's kind of a, I don't know, there's two sides of me. I'm delusionally optimistic, and I'm terrified. And I think if you're in AI in any capacity, you're kind of both. You have to have that delusional optimism, and you have to be like, oh my God, what is going on here? What world are we
Yeah,
headed towards?
crazy.
Are we going
Yeah.
to have robots everywhere? Are we going to even, unless you have a fortune of capital, how are you going to survive? Because the AIs just do everything and monetize everything and build everything. And it's like there's nothing you could possibly think of that someone's AI agent hasn't already built and profited from to the nth degree, and it's like, the question, the underlying question is, what are the fundamental human skills left? Because if the AIs are running themselves, I'm in a bunch of AI chats with like really, smart AI people. And, it's like there's people building tools that they're like, oh, we're having our agent prompt our codex with the prompts are Anthropic, that then prompts are, that runs in another loop that just, I'm like, so what do you do? And they're
Mm.
like, They don't even know. They've just connected all these tools. The agents are doing everything. It's like, this is like heading towards this dystopian future.
Essentially, human can do better than robots and AI now, right? 2 years later.
Well, yeah, exactly. And here's the way I think about it. Okay, so this is the mindset shift, and I'm sure you'll agree with this. The thing now is that, and I had this. I learned this in my marketing agency days, actually, because the fundamental skill was I'm dealing with these people that were smarter than me, more creative than me. They had more followers. They had more money, and they're ahead of you in every way. So the fundamental skill was managing people that, let's use smart as a blanket term there, people that were smarter than you. So in AI, essentially what I've realized is you have to be, because even taking another step back, I think about like our kids' generation. It's like, what are they going to do? And it's like, are the AIs just doing everything? Do they need any intelligence? It's like getting a calculator all of a sudden. It's like, do you need math anymore? But here's my kind of contrarian take. You have to still have your personal intelligence, and you have to be smart enough as a human because you are dealing with something smarter than you. The AIs are smarter than all of us. They're smarter than me. They're smarter than you. They're smarter than all of us. They're already smarter than us, right? There's no one, I don't think, even left on Earth, even an Elon, right? Is like the AI is smarter than Elon, let's say. They're smarter than everybody. And it depends on your definition of AGI, but I think the definition is like it's smarter than all of us combined, right? So you have to have enough intelligence to be able to deal with something, this AI, that's smarter than you. So that is the fundamental skill that is left. You still have to be smart. You still have to have intelligence because you're dealing with something that is smarter than you. So you have to now figure out as a human, how do you make money? How do you integrate into this AI world? How do you harness the powers of AI? How do you use these agents to personally, monetize or to make money, or use the robots that are coming, right? So that is the fundamental skill that is left. So I still challenge people. Like everyone's like, you hear all this stuff online, like drop out of school, you don't need to be smart anymore. You don't need any intelligence. Like, well, that's one way to look at it, but actually you still do, because you still have to integrate into this world somehow. At least it's not happened yet, but no one's just raining money from trees, from AI, right? So they're not just handing out the money. So you got to still get it somehow. You still got to integrate into these systems, unless you're going to go into manual labor or a very specific field. Even my take is like even doctors and surgeries. Like I think that's going to be disrupted too. So people immediately say, oh no, but lawyers and doctors, you're still going to need them. It's like, well, are you? There's companies raising hundreds of millions building AI doctors now that, I'll ask, if you ask a doctor a question, they got to go look it up somewhere. They might have some knowledge of it, but do they know everything, and do they know the edge cases? Versus if you go to even the current health AIs and you ask it a question, it's like coming up with edge cases. And like, I was trying to optimize my sleep, for instance, and you go ask a person, and they'll say, oh, this, that, or the other thing. And you ask the AI, and it gives you every possible edge case and every possible situation specifically tailored to you. You can feed it your blood work. It'll say, oh, based on your blood work, based on your age, based on where you live in the world, based on the climate and this and that and the other thing, here's what you should do. And it'll give you a bunch of suggestions immediately. It's like you don't have to spend how long would that take doing manually with like talking to doctors and experts? You'd have to go around the world spending months of your time trying to optimize on some edge case, whereas the AI is just immediately giving you a perfectly optimal answer. So it's very wild, but I think I still go back to that fundamental belief that we have to be smart enough to deal with these things that are more intelligent than us. So that's the number one thing. And I think if you're in the AI world, your job now is you need to use all the tools. You need to test everything, use everything, break everything. If you don't know what an Hermes agent and an OpenClaw is, and you don't know what Anthropic and OpenAI and GLM 5.2 and open source models and this, that, and the other thing, you should be using all those things and testing everything constantly and figuring out, where do you fit into this? How do you? And the other thing is like kind of the taste is that what the AI now, for the most part, it's still in niche kind of categories or in very competitive fields where there's been decades of research and experience. It's still crypto is actually a good example. If you ask it to build you a tokenomics for a cutting edge 2026 crypto token,
Right.
it'll give you some kind of vague like tokenomics that sort of worked maybe 3 years ago, and it's not cutting edge in that specific field because it's a very niche, nuanced field, and there are still categories like that. So if you have Charlie's expertise of knowledge of a certain industry, of the blockchain, for instance, you'll get these nuanced takes that the AI won't. So there still is a huge gap there. So I'm not saying that AI knows everything, but it's getting to the point where it does know everything. So
Definitely agree. I think a lot of parts you said, I feel that even in real practice, if you give really well structured data and a context with good harness, good structure, AI can fundamentally beat human. It already beat human in the Go, the chess, esports, a lot of things, which is very deterministic, right? Which is like in the framework within this like narrow, like limited kind of data sets and places, right? With very clear rule sets. I think in those kind of area, essentially human has no chance to beat AI. It's already like that part is already done like many years ago.
yeah,
Now it's getting to a crazy, scary area of creative work, right? Even design now with cloud design, right? Coding, with Cursor now, get acquired. Cloud code, everybody use it, even us. And then the next level, as you mentioned about legal, we got some legal clients literally don't even need any peer review anymore, right? All the legal associates, a lot of the junior ones now can be done by some senior partners with decades of industry experiences. Their nuances very matters. Like I tell a lot of my colleagues as well, whoever wants to join and work closely in my team in COCO, they need to have good taste. The taste of what is good in terms of technology, good output, and also what customer really need. I think that part, that feedback loop especially in some specific area, AI don't have access to that. We call this
yeah,
tacit knowledge, right? In a lot of the industry, especially niches, the AI doesn't really have those tacit knowledge. AI doesn't have those preparatory data. AI is not like real workforce has been working in those area for like many of years, but it will get there. So I think that the opportunity for AI application company like us, and your company as well, is the gap we can close potentially with our harness, with our framework, with additional data we can bring AI to and let them get access to, right? Because AI doesn't have access to real world. They don't have access to a lot of spatial 3D the world. They don't have access. They are not then they need the ears and eyes to see what's the real world is happening, not just the Google's, the database, the digital world, but actually the real world on the earth, right? Like because a lot of AI don't really have access to all the surveillance camera data, which is also scary and dystopian. They don't have access to what's happening to this architectural building when they are building it. They don't have access to a lot of the manufacturing plants in sophisticated area and so on. They don't have access to a lot of the war zone, all these crazy places because they essentially cannot, right? So I think a lot of part they don't really have access to. But in the pure digital world, I agree. It sounds a bit dystopia, but it is reality. Like it's getting scarily good and powerful. Whoever can handle that well with good taste and perspective is going to be so powerful. So I'm actually practically very positive to the whole society. When
yeah,
everybody, oh my God, you're gonna have no job. What about our kids? Education in the college is completely useless. They should just basically do nothing and wait for the AGI. I fundamentally disagree because there's gonna be money to be made, as I mentioned as well, right? Liquidity is still gonna be the scarce resources. Whoever really have good skills and people willing to pay for that is still gonna be very important. But not necessarily those kind of hard skills in the mundane old world, meaning you just memorize the entire knowledge in the book. That doesn't mean anything anymore, right? You memorize the whole definition about whatever jargons, and then you just like try to finish the task, get a high grade. That old school of education or things similar work like that is wiped out, is obsolete, right?
yeah.
If you have really good taste, you can put in a lot of data, a lot of things together. We call this connecting dots. And those are the important people we want to hire. Like we are still hiring. Like company like us, we are busy hiring. We are hiring important
Yeah.
people who can handle and use AI properly, right? Yeah, probably you're doing the same. Hmm.
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, we are too. And it's funny. It's like you're right. So right about taste because, design is a great example. If you ask most AIs, like, hey, design me a world class cutting edge pitch deck, it's gonna,
Yeah.
and then a human looks at it, they're like, this is world class and cutting edge. It's like,
No.
um, with a few exceptions, if you're really good at prompting and really good at giving it examples. But it'll, what most of the AIs do is they'll take, like, they have template systems, and they'll use their template, and they'll say, this is great
Yeah.
because it has this, and this element. But then a human looks at it and they're like, oh, this is like a terrible deck that looks like someone made
Yeah.
in 5 minutes on PowerPoint. So there are still discrepancies in the taste side of these AIs. So it is
AI
quite
can
interesting.
reach to only the middle level. It's like statistically only the
Yeah, yeah.
they
Literally
cannot
by definition, right?
by definition they cannot go
Yeah,
so out of the mind, get very creative, be very original. They never designed to be like that, right? And also flip side,
yeah.
I want to hear most of the existing Web2 software, all this existing legacy platform, if they want to use it, let AI agents to be the user and access to those platform, it's actually it's very very actually terrible experience right now. Like now
It
you
is.
have this
Yeah,
a lot of AI agents have hard time to get access to a lot of LinkedIn data and so on because a lot of the legacy platform was designed by for human. And
right.
now I think that's another topic, and I'm curious, right, wearing your privacy builder hat, because we need to think about the AI centric design as well. Like how if you, what if your next 1 billion users actually AI agents? Does your platform, your product actually AI agent friendly or not? Most of the existing
Oh,
platform,
totally.
right?
They're
So I'm
not.
curious
Yeah.
if you are building your product, right? You're actually helping a lot of different platform to add the a privacy feature. Do you think like some company actually are ready for that, or a lot of those existing platforms have to rebuild themselves completely?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the pure experience side for users and agents, as you said, it's literally very different. It's your,
Yeah,
on one side, you're trying to teach AI to act like a human on human made sites, and it's very clunky.
right.
It's very difficult. Like, Meta was recently trying to record their employees,
Oh,
using
yeah,
computers to try to train the AI how to use computers like humans. And it's like, why are we designing it like that? It's like, shouldn't we be building a different experience where it's like, if you're going to be targeting agents, shouldn't you make something more agent native
user friendly,
than
yeah,
user agent friendly? And you're still gonna have humans. They're still gonna want to browse the internet and look at things, and read stories and watch shows and do things and write articles and do all those things as humans. But yeah, I think it's a separate experience. To your point, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to combine those things. And even now, even the current AI tools, if you tell it to go like log into a website and do something, it's very clunky because it's like, all right, we're gonna go over here, and you can almost see in that, you can, if you watch the stream of conscious kind of with the AI, you can almost see its frustration of, oh, where we have to move the mouse over here and click on this, and now we got to find this, and it's like the AI is almost like, what? Who invented this? This is
yeah.
crazy.
Stupid.
So this is stupid. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, it could be so much simpler. This should be a file that just has list of information. Like, why do we have all these buttons?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But again, built for two different purposes: humans versus AI, which is a very
Mhm.
different experience. But yeah, it's the gap is closing because you are having people are using their agents to do things to then distill down the information to themselves. They're sending off an article saying, read this article and tell me what I need to know as it relates to my food truck business or whatever. And get that information distilled from the AI. But it could be more efficient still. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for this, right? It's even people, someone was building a social network for AI agents, and that was kind of interesting,
Cool.
where they could, yeah, where they could share information. And but I think we're going to see a lot more integration with AI agents. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg because it's still a little clunky for like yeah, people like us, we can figure it out and make it work. But if you're not like really kind of, red pilled on AI and like super in the trenches of using these things, it's still like kind of clunky. Where it's, oh, I got to install this thing in my terminal, and well, I don't want to use terminal. Oh my God, this is confusing. And how do I do that? And so it's still a bit clunky, but definitely getting there. And I think there'll be a longer period of time of opportunity than people realize. People go, oh, but everyone just has AI now and just builds everything and this and that and the other thing. It's like, well, people also still have websites that haven't been updated since 2004.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so it's like, is everyone
Uninstall
going to jump?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, is everyone going to switch to AI agents tomorrow and everything's AI and suddenly it's all changed? No. Yes, there will be some. There'll be this percentage, but there's also going to be this percentage that just doesn't update anything, doesn't do anything. You can never underestimate human laziness. So until the AIs are forcing us to do it all for us, I think people will still be lazy and say, ah, it's. Yeah." And the other thing is like with AI, a lot of people that I know that aren't really in the AI world, they use like the free versions of the AI,
Yeah.
and their experience is terrible because it's garbage compared to what's currently at the cutting edge, right? It's like 2 years behind or something. So they're just saying, "Oh, I don't know. I asked it this question and it kind of gave me this vague answer." I said, "Yeah, because you're using the free version. It's 2 years old."
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago it was not where it is today. Today it's a whole different experience. If you've got an optimized agent today with frontier level intelligence, you're getting a very different, even on a chat system, you're getting a very different response than some free version of ChatGPT.
100% agree. Last year when Opus 4.5 came out, our engineering team really see that moment. It was very vivid in my face still. Like the amount of output we get, the really good quality. I feel like, oh my God, we have to fundamentally rebuild our organization, our engineering team, right? And now 6 months later, things like that happened. Yeah, it's great takes, and I create a lot of things you just said. I'm actually glad to hear a lot of validation. That the V3 product we are going to launch is actually like exactly designing for that, the big agentic friendly. I'm actually very can't wait to
Nice.
share it to our audience community. May potentially will collaborate with your privacy feature. I think that be uniquely in the market, right? So yeah, it's been pleasure to talk about all these interesting topics. We're now kind of getting close to the end of it. Before we conclude, a few like five-side kind of a quick question, before we end this. Maybe just one or two questions that you can answer as simple as possible. Ideally, how do you think is the most underrated or underdiscovered area in the AI space? And that's the first question. The second question: how do you see the AI landscape 2 years later? And
Yeah.
hope, yeah,
Underdiscovered, you know, um, for people that aren't really deep in AI, I think it's simply AI agents because they don't even know what that means. People are still in the chat era. If you
hmm
take 90% of the population, they're kind of still in the chat era. So I think
yeah,
it depends who you're asking. If you're asking me as Brian, as the super AI pilled person that's really deep in this, might be a slightly different answer. But still, I think fundamentally for everybody, it's AI agents because the
mm,
scale of what's possible with that and what that can do for a business, for an individual. You can have a you can have an AI agent right now that takes
that's
a look
really
at
good.
everything you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it can do everything you already do. It's like, okay, you buy groceries every week and you use an app to have your groceries delivered, let's say,
yeah,
especially in maybe Southeast Asia.
yeah,
And we do that. We can do that here in the US too. That's an easy task for an AI agent. Okay, give it access to whatever account you have, and boom, it's
mm,
it's ordering the groceries and doing it. It's like that just saved you hours and hours and hours. That's
yep,
just one very minor use case. And there's many if you apply it to a business, right? I was just talking to somebody with a business that has a lot of bookings, and they were saying, "Oh,
mm,
well, it would be so nice if we could have an AI that just like handles the bookings and like I can talk to it and it can just decide appointment
yeah,
times and move people around." That's a very simple task for an AI agent right now.
yeah, it
And he's got like a person doing it all, and it's like some clunky old system, and it's like
and a human
they're having a
perspective,
nightmare.
human
Yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
this kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I think AI agents are just people don't realize the power there, and they're even easy to use now. The argument a few months ago is, oh, you got to use the command line, and that's hard to do, and I don't want to do that. Now it's like you look at an Hermes agent; they've got a desktop app that's super easy
yeah,
to use. It's like you have no excuses now. You just literally, it's like five, but they literally copy and paste what's on their website, install it, and on a mobile. Yeah, exactly, and on mobile. So they have all these on mobile now too. You can connect them to your WhatsApp, Telegram, iMessage, Lark, whatever you use, and
yeah.
instantly there and accessible, and you can, whatever your task is, you're doing these things with AI. So I think agents in general are just still massively undiscovered by the
But
vast
yes,
majority of the population.
100%. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah.
wearing your AI super AI pure builder hat, what do you want to achieve next 2 years? Or what do you wish you hope you see it's gonna achieve and make it happen next 2 years?
I think, I mean, personally, I'm just really interested in the privacy space. So I'm hoping there's more. I do
Mm,
hope there's more thought behind that because I could see this going very bad very quick. And it's not
yeah,
even like, oh, they have to use our solution, but like in general, it'd be really great if the
nobody
industry
even
as a
talk about it.
whole. No
Yeah.
one even talks about it. It's like it's kind of it could be very it could lead to a lot of big problems like mass surveillance. Essentially, if everything we use, let's say everything we use in 2 years from now is essentially connected to an AI, where does that lead? Are they going to, even Anthropic just recently said, oh, we're going to start requiring IDs for everybody. So that's really bad because what's going to happen is now they know, now they don't have a hunch that it's Charlie. They know it's Charlie because they require your ID, right?
Yeah.
And same for me. So it's like they have, and this is what the problem has been with like social media platforms that require IDs or anyone that's required IDs. It's like now they know exactly who it is, and it's stored alongside your prompts. So it's really scary, and
Everything you
that
ask
data,
is on the record. Everything you
everything
said
is on the record. Yeah.
is on the record. My God.
So
Yeah.
it changes the game. So it's like it makes the AI, it takes the AI tools from really useful to scratching your head like, do I really want to tell it these health questions? Do I want to talk about this legal issue? Do I want to talk about these my taxes? You know, whatever the thing might be. So I am hoping that in a couple of years we get some like some solutions there. And just like better integrations, I would say across right now it's fragmented, right? There's too much fragmentation. So I have,
Right.
I'm using Anthropic, I'm using OpenAI, I'm using Zcode, I'm using Pi, I'm using all these different systems for different purposes, and it's all fragmented everywhere. And you can connect your agent to it and kind of use those things, but then you're missing out on the native harnesses and all these unique experiences on their native apps or CLIs, and it's way too fragmented. And I feel like that in and of itself is a bit of a frustration if you're a deep AI user.
Right.
And maybe you have your preferences over time. You go, oh, well, I'm just going to use this one. You have to kind of pick a lane. But especially, it's very easy to kind of geek out on shiny object syndrome a little bit right now, where you say, oh, this platform launched this launched this, and you want to go test it and you want to go use it. But everything's kind of just dispersed everywhere. So it's a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
So it would be good if we figured out agentic, maybe it's COCO, maybe some agentic system that
There's
is
going to
able
be
to
some
streamline.
consolidation tool, right, to orchestrate a lot of things in a very holistic way and make it user friendly. We are building that. A lot
Yeah,
of people are doing that.
yeah,
Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Brian. I think with that we can conclude. This is a very, very interesting topic. Hopefully, we can do maybe another episode after you launch your product.
absolutely.
I'm very looking forward, and I agree. Next 2 years is going to be very different. It's going to be very important in the human civilization. I would say, if we revisit this 50 years later, even 200 years later, if we revisit this next 2 years from 2026 to 2028, this is going to be probably very important, critical 2 years in the human civilization. I really feel that way in everyday's
Yep,
life, in my workload, in my startup journey. And yeah, well, let's do that maybe next time, a couple months later, to revisit some of the model updates, our product
sure.
updates, and so on. With that said, thank you everybody to listening. Where people can find you? Yeah, share your social media channel stuff.
Yeah, probably on X is the easiest one. Brian D. Evans is on there, and all social platforms. Could find me
Yeah.
there.
Well, Brian has a lot of followers. You should follow him. Okay, thank you very much for everybody who listening. This is our sixth episode of Coco Talk, and we're gonna have a new brand next episode. We actually rebranding. I forgot to mention that. So this is our very last episode of Coco Talk. We have a new name next episode. Thanks, Brian, to join our last episode for this name, and we're gonna have more content coming soon. Thank you everybody for listening. We see you the next time. Cheers, guys. Okay.